Hello, book friends new and old, and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. Today we have Dr. Natasha Arora joining us again for a spoiler-free review of Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Best attempt there. Which is book 2 of the Children of Time series. The audio length is 15 hours and 26 minutes, and the physical copy is 576 pages. This book is counting towards our 52 book challenge. You were nice enough to do the Children of Time Geek Out session with us.
Well, you were nice enough to recommend it, so
Thank
it's the
you.
least I could do.
Thank you. Could you help me put together kind of a rough synopsis of book 2?
So, as a synopsis, it's very intricate in terms of the different groups and how they're kind of coming together. And I almost wish, but I don't wish, I almost wish that there was like a map at the beginning or some like bullet point of like this goes here and then they did this and then just so I had context for what I'm reading.
They do they do a lot of time hopping, right? And then they do a lot of different point of view shifts. And the first book we have kind of the 2 points of view, right? Spoilers for the first book are fair game. If people don't want that ruined, you should probably read Children of Time before coming to the Children of Ruin. But you pretty much have the spiders and then the human perspectives in the first book. In this one, you have that and then a handful more perspectives, and then you have multiple time hops, and it's not all linear. I think there's a lot of back and forth and then different perspectives. And I've re-listened to this book a number of times, and the pieces are still clicking for me. Just because it's such a grand scale, right? It's literally over thousands of years.
Yeah, one thing that it took me a minute, I like kept seeing the new like section headings or chapter headings. I was like, wait, didn't I just hear a number three? Didn't I just read a number four? And I don't know what's happening, but I caught something about like past one or past two. And I was like, okay, but which past and how far back are we talking? So I think that was a nice clue
Yeah.
early on. There's like, I'm missing things, but I didn't quite understand. So I'm piecing it together now. And I think kind of like the first book, where it took me like maybe 3/4 of the way through the book before I had that epiphany where I understood the title and what it meant and why it was there. Um, to have a similar epiphany, like I got all the way through the first book. I was like, I don't know where the title came from.
Yeah.
And now I'm, on the second pass, I'm like, I think I understand, but I don't have a full like conviction on that yet.
Yes, yes. Quick skim through it. I want to say it's about like 6 different parts where it's like past, present, etc., etc. And it's just, they're all pieces of the larger puzzle. But
Hmm.
for somebody who likes to listen to books while multitasking,
This is not for that. I can
exactly,
vouch. Not
exactly.
one of those.
There's just so many details that if you miss it,
Hmm.
you're kind of confused and you're like, okay, like what's going on, right? So,
Yeah. Especially one thing that's really been throwing me off is the different, we'll say, groups, to keep this as spoiler free as possible. The different groups are increasingly similar,
mm,
at least from the things that I'm picking up on, and it's making it really hard to keep them separate, which I think is part of the point of the story,
hmm
But in a lot of books, right, you have group one and group two, and you have maybe like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something totally unrelated. You have like fairies and dragons or something, right? So like very different styles and cultures and all these things, like even tones and everything.
Hmm.
I'm not getting any of that in this book anymore. And it makes it even more difficult to keep the parts of the story separate. But as I said, I think that's part of the message and like where the story is trying to go.
Right, right. Um, in the first book, like we said, it's the spiders and a very human-ish, or not humanish, very Earth-like planet. So there's
Mm-hmm.
still some of those similarities, but it's very much an alien mind in a way because it's
Yeah.
arachnids versus humanity. Um, this book for me just goes to a whole new level because you're dealing with multiple quote unquote alien perspectives and the time hops and um, just to kind of reel it back synopsis wise, it's a very similar setup to the first book, right? It's part of the Earth's terraforming program, so it's almost as if like they both start at the same point, and then kind of like the first book, you progress through thousands of years to get to at the end of the first book, the humans and the arachnids have some sort of alliance going on, coexisting, and they hear these radio signals out there in the stars. So they take off to go um, learn more about these signals. So we get to see that timeline from the humanity, arachnids, ants, um, Kern, so you have AI, spider, humans,
Excuse me.
um, and all their perspectives and motives and everything, and then you have this whole other timeline in book two, and I really enjoy it. Um, Yet there's just so many moving parts going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
For me, I like as someone who doesn't read a lot of sci-fi, it's like if you could classify degrees of science fiction from like close to normal and like a little gap to like, yeah, it's a stretch, but it could happen.
mm,
Like The Martian, right? Like the author did a lot of research about could this actually happen? And it's like, yeah, in the next, I don't know, 50 to 200 years, sure, like that could happen, right?
right.
So it's like that's like a little jump, right? And then the first book, Children of Time, was probably like, okay. And now this one's just like way out there,
Yeah.
which I think is really cool, right? That's part of the fun of sci-fi. It's like
Hmm.
the world building and the different, not just the different characters, but the different types of characters. You have to think beyond just human and animals on Earth that we know and understand.
Hmm.
Uh, but having all those pieces come together in the way that this author has done it with the time component is just,
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's a lot.
I was thinking about that, and I've literally read hundreds of books up until this point, and very few take place on this type of a time scale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if it wasn't for the first book with Adrian kind of getting us ready for this type of format,
Yes.
Children of Ruin would just be such a stretch. Because like the first one, it kind of gets you used to this 1,000 year long time scale and the different perspectives and everything. And then we have
Yeah.
Children of Ruin, which is, like you said, it just goes another step up.
Yeah.
So,
I want to throw out a quick analogy that I just thought of that happens to deal with space travel too. So like the first book is kind of like if you're an astronaut in training, right? And you go through like the zero gravity simulators and things like that, right? To get you used to what it's like to actually be in space.
mhm.
It's like Children of Time was like astronaut training, and now we're like floating out in space, which isn't too far of a reach from what is actually happening, ironically. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm definitely glad the first book was there as like a little primer or training module for
Yes.
us.
Yes. We completed the training and now we have
Check. Training check. Good luck, cadets.
exactly blast off into space with new technology, new allies, new potential
Mm.
enemies,
New
new
worlds.
worlds, new frontiers.
Yeah.
Um, Strange and interesting times. So, you're working your way through the second pass. Your feelings might change after you get to the end of that. Currently, having read it, listened to it 1.25-ish times, what's your overall rating out of 5 stars for the book?
Oh, okay. So at the end of the first pass, admittedly, I knew I had missed some things, and I was like, okay, I definitely need to give this book another listen before I pass a real judgment. But after that first pass, I'll say my judgment was pretty low. I thought, oh man, this book sucks. It's just another copy of the first book. It's like the same template, the same thing. It's like another episode of the same show. I don't need to do this again. But then I got to the end and I was like, no, that's my fault. I'm pretty sure there's more to it because the first book was like relatively intricate. I was like, the same author, the chances are that it's just copy and paste are pretty low. So now, as I'm going through the second pass, I would say the intricacies and everything we just discussed is maybe like a little much for me. So, if anything, that docks it points
Hmm.
to maybe like a 4 out of 5.
That's more than I thought you were going to give it after talking to you
I'm
about
I'm
it. It sounds,
I'm pretty generous knowing my what I missed.
yeah, and good on you. To give it that second chance and second pass. And maybe it's not Adrian. Maybe we missed some things. I know for myself, I definitely missed a lot the first pass through. I tip
Makes me feel a little better.
uh, I typically listen a little bit faster, and there's just so much going on there. I feel like a 4 out of 5 stars is fair. There's things he probably could have done better to kind of help us along with the story,
Yes.
um, to kind of ease us into it. There are a lot of similarities to book one, so I think you're right on the money there that in a way it is kind of a clone of the first book.
Hmm.
Um,
I think it superficially it's a clone of the first book,
mhm.
but if you dive into the details, there's enough there that it doesn't feel like a clone as long as you pay attention to the details.
Yes, yes. And we've already established we're aiming to do a Geek Out session of this book
Yes.
in June, so we can get into the details there, the nitty
Perfect.
gritty. Looking forward to that. Typically, we try to do an age rating for the books. Uh,
Let's do it.
where do you feel age rating wise this falls for you? Child friendly,
Ooh.
more mature audience? I definitely feel that a lot of these concepts, um, you need more of a mature audience, but I'm trying to think back to in regards to graphics, adult themes. I'm really trying to think if there's anything that really requires a teen to mature audience.
Yeah, nothing's jumping out at me as like the standard reasons that you would rate it as like a more mature book,
Mm-hmm.
other than just the sheer intellectual complexity and also grasping some of the science concepts. Like obviously not under like you don't need to know like how the science could work
Mm-hmm.
or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
like even just grasping that variant on what we know and what we experience
Mm-hmm.
is it's just like almost mind bending, which I think is why this book is taking two, maybe 3 year passes
Yeah,
to really grasp it. And that's like as a scientist, I'm like, hold on, like what just happened?
right, right. The only thing I can think of that would potentially give it a teen rating is it does follow this group from the Terraforming Project. Um, Again, in book one, we learned that uh, Earth civilization kind of collapse. So it's, I want to say it's like 4 or 5 scientists that we're
Mm,
following, and it does allude to their romance a little bit, but we don't get
yes.
any real graphic details. It's just more
No.
of,
I
hey,
think
oh, go ahead.
I actually just read a part, so I'm glad you said that. And it was basically, I think the degree to which was like, there are a lot of pairings. It's like just the way it was like subtly done. I even had to stop and think like, oh, okay,
Yes,
right.
yes.
So I think it, for most audiences, I think it would be okay.
I agree with you. If a younger, a young adult wanted to pick up this book, I would be comfortable with it. Nothing too graphic, nothing too mature or over the top. Um, this is definitely a world building book. Um,
That says it very lightly.
yes, yes,
World building and time bending, perhaps.
yes, yes. So out of 5 stars, I would put probably the world building maybe 4 out of 5. How about for you?
Yeah, I think just because of the sheer number of things that are happening in the book, even with its length, there wasn't a lot of time
Hmm.
spent on one thing. One scene specifically sticks out, um, but that was only one scene.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I think 4 or 5 sounds
Again,
fair.
just the scope of this book, it's literally thousands of years. So we get kind of like snapshots along the timeline, and we're
Yeah.
left to kind of piece it all together. Uh,
Which I do want to add too is very much like what the characters are experiencing, or at least some of them, right?
yes.
So I don't know if that was intentional or not to kind of help you relate. I don't. This is the thing. Like this book needs so many passes to grasp all the pieces.
Which is saying something because previous reviews you've mentioned that typically you don't like to reread
I
books.
don't. I don't. That
Um,
that is a good point. I read one book and I'm done. Like I don't even reread the first book before I read the second book because it's I don't know. I just
yes,
don't.
yes.
But this book, here I am, second time I'm reading it, already maybe planning for a third one. So
Which says something. If it was
yeah,
absolutely awful, correct me if I'm wrong, you would have just been like, okay, no, not for me, didn't work.
yeah. I would have finished it because you recommended it. I would have told you, hey Karl, no more of that.
Yes,
It's too
yes.
much.
Um, let's see, character development. I'm trying to think. We get a little bit of that, but I really don't feel it's a very character-driven book as much. Um,
No, I think it relies a lot on the building that was done in Children of Time. I don't think there's anything uniquely done in this book.
I agree with that. I agree with that. For character development, out of 5 stars, where would you rank it?
This book individually, without the first one,
Correct.
ooh, 3 out of 5.
Reading my mind, I was going to put it at a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not so much that the character development wasn't there, it was just very limited, and this isn't that type of book.
Yeah.
It's much more on the world building, on let's play in the universe and
Mhm.
see what happens when
Oof.
humanity decides to play God and destroy its home world in the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Final thoughts on Children of Ruin?
Final thoughts. If you're going to pick this up, chances are you're going to read it more than once, whether you want to or not. I think that's the only fair way to do it. You can't read it just once and catch all of it. It's just not possible.
I agree with you. I really enjoy the book. I really enjoy the series. I want to read more of Adrian Tchaikovsky just because of these books, but if you're going to read it once and expect to catch everything,
Yeah.
good luck. Good luck. As we said earlier, planning to do a Geek Out stream. Looking forward to doing a deeper dive into this book. I know I'm certainly going to have to go back and reread it again to get all those details to bring forward, uh,
I might be on my third read by then.
which is saying something for someone who likes to be one and done.
Yep.
So, looking forward to breaking this book down with you. So,
Yeah, me too.
thanks, Sasha. Bye.
Bye.